Welcome to episode 6B. It's the second hour of Handy at the Shandy, a Las Vegas podcast. I'm here with Adam the Fraud Bauer and Boring Jack. I'm Table Games James, and we have a great episode here for you. We're going to do some sports betting talk, get into some listeners' questions, and did you guys know that we're in a Survivor pool and we need to pick our game?
I'm really good at Survivor contests, very clearly. I'm 2 for 2. We'll get into that in a bit, and I'm looking forward to whatever sports betting talk we're going to get into because we are all pro sports bettors. I would like to point out, if you're on the sports betting timeline, I am not the worst sports bettor on the Twitter space in Cook County, Illinois, just so you know. There is a guy out there who's absolutely ludicrous, and you may know who I'm talking about, but we could talk offline about that. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, so Jack, you brought this up. You said, "Hey, I'd like to talk a little bit an hour or two about sports betting." So I'm going to let you take the lead on the stuff that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the NFL season in full swing, college football going on, and we are just weeks away from a full slate of NBA and NHL games dominating the schedule for the next 6 to 7 months. So it's a great time to talk about sports betting because if you're in Vegas, anytime in the next 6 months, there's going to be some sort of game of note on every night going forward. So I thought we might as well start with a small primer on what sorts of sports bets are available and a little bit of the terminology, just because I know we're going to slip into using some of these words without explaining them if we don't. And the main words I wanted to define are just kind of the ways that the casino makes bets make sense, right? Because not everything you're going to be betting on is going to be a 50-50 or even near 50-50 proposition, right? And so the two main ways that the casino is going to change the odds are either A, money line bets, which are actually, I think they're, especially for betting football, they're kind of a less common bet, but a money line bet is actually just a bet on the result of the game. And there will be some sort of odds where the underdog gets more money if you bet on the underdog and win, and you get less money if you bet on the favorite and win. But a money line bet is just one where you're betting on the result of the game, like who's going to win the game. And it's a lot more common in things like baseball and hockey than it is in football, but it's still available on basically any game that you're going to be betting on.
Mm-hmm.
And then for football specifically, and plenty of other contests, the other thing you're going to hear a lot about is the point spread, where the point spread is generally put together such that either side of the bet that you want, it's going to be about roughly 50-50. And so they find a number that the favorite might have to win by, that at that number, it's about 50-50 whether the favorite will win by that amount or more, or lose or win, but not by that amount, right? So the point spread, if you see something where it says the Vikings are -4.5, all that means is that the Vikings are favored, and they are, so minus meaning you would subtract 4.5 from the Vikings score and then compare it to the score of their opponent before you adjudicate the bet. That's kind of how I think about whether how those pluses and minuses go.
Yeah, for them to win, for you to win your bet, they'd have to win by 5 points or more in that scenario.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of explaining it. And in the biz industry chatter, we would call that a cover. If you end up, if the Vikings in that case were to win by 5 or more, you would hear someone say, "Oh yeah, the Vikings covered," or if they didn't, they failed to cover. And I think it is important to, when you're talking about this stuff in a podcast like this, to say what those words mean. And during COVID, I wrote a blog post about money line, like what does it mean if it says -140, or what does it mean if it's +150? Because I was teaching economics and was extremely bored and was like, I could write a blog post with math, and I did it, and it got dozens of views. I'm telling you that.
So yeah, and then the last type of bet that you hear a lot about is people talk about futures, like I've got a bunch of NFL futures bets or stuff like that. And futures bets generally just mean you're betting on some sort of season-long event, right? So it's a futures bet in the sense that the bet won't be adjudicated anytime soon. You might say, I have the Vikings to win more than 8.5 games this season, or I have the Eagles to win the NFC Conference Championship, or stuff like that. And people generally just refer to those as futures bets. And their futures bets, they can be very long odds, like if you were betting on the Vikings to win the NFC Conference Championship, or they could be, a 50-50 bet where you're like, oh, I have the Colts on over 5.5 wins this season, stuff like that. So futures bets kind of can end up looking either more like a money line bet or more like a point spread bet, just kind of depending on how they're set up.
Yeah, and I think another thing that you didn't put here in the notes that you hear a lot about are parlays when you're doing sports betting, which might come up later on in this discussion.
I think I
Uh,
forgot about it because I would never bet a parlay. I just
right,
don't even really
right.
consider it. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, a parlay is you're just taking two or more bets, and every one that you're betting, they all need to hit in order to get paid. And of course, you're getting higher odds on that. You're going to get a higher payout on it. But especially now with all the online and app sports betting, where they're pushing these types of bets that they think people can get addicted to see that huge payoff. I think it's important to say what a parlay is.
Yeah, and before we go any further, just so people know, we don't want sports betting super fans to come at us. This is
No.
very basic stuff we're trying to get across, especially for people that maybe are apprehensive to make some sports bets in the casino, because it can seem intimidating at times. You see the big board, there's so many numbers up there. But these can be really fun. I just did it on my recent trip. I didn't actually talk about it, saving it for here. But it's actually fun to have kind of bets that can potentially cash throughout the day that are kind of more passive, right? So I'm just kind of watching and waiting. And it's not something that like you're rolling up to a craps game or something. And it's you're making your bets there. You've got something on the line throughout the day that you can kind of maybe potentially cash. It's really fun.
so on that note, then why don't you kick us off? Just I was kind of hoping we'd each get to talk a bit about like if, how, when, like we like to do our sports betting.
Oh yeah, I mean, so I really like going out the first weekend of the NFL season, and so like I talked in the previous episode or part A of this episode of like being at the cabana, being able to watch the games. What I like to do is just go up to any of the kiosks that are there now, which is so fantastic that they have those now, especially for beginners, because as I said, there's a lot of nuances to sports betting. Being able to understand what to say and how to say it in the right order can feel a little bit intimidating when you're going up to a book. And let's face it, sometimes guys writing the tickets at the books don't have the most patience, especially if it's like close to game time. There's a long line. They don't a lot of times have time to educate. There are many that do, but you do get some surly guys every once in a while. So I think if you're a beginner looking for those kiosks that are there, I think every MGM property has them, and many more do as well. But that's how I tend to like to do it because I like having the physical ticket. You can do a sports betting app in Las Vegas; they'll try to get you to sign up for them for sure. But I just like having that physical ticket on me. Just kind of that kinesthetic thing of why I like playing live craps instead of bubble craps most of the time. But yeah, I'll go up to a kiosk the morning of, which you get into sports bettors. You typically want to play some earlier than that. Lines can move kind of all the time. What was maybe once -5.5 is now -4. Whatever, and things can move. But I'm not a pro. I'm just going to have some fun. So morning of, I'll go to the kiosk, make some bets, and have those on me for the rest of the day. I'll put them in my room, but I'll take pictures of them so I just remember what I had. But that's how I tend to like to do it.
Yeah, and if you're not a pro, it kind of doesn't matter when you place the bet because if you're not making an educated choice backed by hard data,
Right.
then the
I've
line's just as likely to move in your favor as not.
Right.
You're not
I've
gonna.
never gotten what's called closing line value before. I've never been in
Never.
the best position. I've never gotten one over. I've just been lucky every time I've won. So for me, it doesn't matter. Yeah, like I said, when I make the bet.
Yeah, I used to do a lot more sports betting than I do now. I still go out every year to Vegas for the first weekend of March Madness, and that's when I am betting the heaviest when it comes to sports betting. And that's just because we've got a group of, 6 to 10 guys that are taking over a table in a sports book, and I'm just throwing, 50, $60 at pretty much every game. Uh, I am not looking up data. I am usually just saying, hey, I watched that Big Ten team one time. So let's bet on that. And in fact, lately, what I've been doing is if I'm with friends, I'm just seeing what the majority of people in the group are betting on. And I'm taking that side so that way I can
Nice.
root with them. I actually don't like going up to the kiosk. I'd rather go up to the main place, basically because, if I go up to the counter, I'm gonna get drink tickets, hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
and so I could talk my way into a little more drink tickets at the sports book. So that I also, I mean, I do have, in Pennsylvania, we can do anything on our phones. Let's just be honest, it's not Texas. Um, and I've been placing a lot of bets against the New York Mets. I'm a Mets fan, and they are horrible right now, and they're probably going to miss the playoffs for having probably they have the worst pitching staff ever. Anyways, I've just been betting $25 every day against them for the past 2 weeks, and I'm making so much money. But it's also a little bit of a hedge of my feelings because if they don't make the playoffs, at least I'm making a little bit of money. Yeah, that's my history with sports. But I used to have a whole tracker. I used to track it all, and now I'm just like, whatever. Let me throw a few bucks.
It's a good point about drink tickets, though, and of course, tipping certainly helps that, and betting at a higher volume helps that. But also, the kiosks are not going to have all the bets that you can make as compared to going up as well. So if you're really into it, or if you're getting into it, the kiosk might not have kind of like if you got a sports betting app at home and you're seeing different like player prop bets, right? Of like Joe Flacco over X amount of yards. There are some times, which is a bet I won this weekend, by the way. There are some kiosks that just are not going to have maybe all of the player props or the type of bets that maybe your app at home is going to have. So going up to the actual ticket counter, not being a beta boy like me, can resolve that for you.
Yeah. What about you, Jack?
So I brought this topic up, but I'm really not much of a sports bettor. I can go a whole calendar year. I mean, I like sports betting, at least the concept of it and that the environment it creates and that kind of stuff. And I like the way that it can make a game that you previously didn't have a stake in just more exciting immediately. But I can go a whole calendar year where the only sports bet I make is that like I bet my 30 to win 20 on like the Super Bowl with my buddy. And that might be the only sports bet I make in a year. But I've definitely been in Vegas making sports bets on like, French Open tennis or stuff like that that's going on that we know we're going to be watching because it's on early in the morning. And I really like that it makes for good stories, right? Like Adam couldn't help but say, oh yeah, I had the over on Joe Flacco's yards. Like there was this one match where we had Kevin Anderson from South Africa to beat Federer, and he was like plus 1,000, meaning a 10-1 underdog. So we were getting 10-1 on our money. And it ended up being like one of the longer matches played because it went to like extra games in the fifth set. And so it was like this game that made news for kind of being this long marathon match, one of the longer tennis matches that tournament had seen. And I could say, yeah, and we bet on the guy that ultimately won it and we 10x'd our money, you know? And so just kind of like the fun little stories you get from having action on the games, I think is a really neat part of it. But the types of bets I'm usually making, I kind of wanted to lead with that glossary because I really like making bets that the teams are trying to win. Which is to say, like,
continue.
If you're betting on the Patriots to, let's say this is 10 years ago, and you're betting on the Patriots to like cover some like 19-point spread against some other woeful AFC East team, the Patriots aren't trying to win by 19.5. They're just trying to win the game. And so if you're betting on some of these more tangentially related events, you can end up in situations where the team actually has like a perverse incentive to make you lose. And I feel like that gets really frustrating really quick. Maybe if you're a fantasy player, you're used to it, but like I can't stand those sort of bad beats that happen because the team was trying to get you to lose your bet.
Those backdoor covers, as you will.
Yeah, I really don't like backdoor covers.
Yeah. I look backdoor wide open, no covers. You can cut that part or leave it in. I was gonna say, I make bets where I think the team's gonna lose. No, just kidding. To go off of your saying that you're trying to win, I get that.
I want my interest to be aligned with those of the team I'm betting on.
Right, you're looking for smaller lines where it's like, they want to kick this field goal at the end.
I'm just saying I'm going to take money line bets instead of point spread bets in basically every case. So to avoid these types of perverse incentives or whatever you want to call it. That's really all I was getting at.
Oh, okay. Now, the next thing you have here are things that we like about sports betting and maybe some sports betting pet peeves. I think we mentioned this a couple of these things about like what we really enjoy about sports betting in general. And the three of us on this call, as Adam said, like we're not professionals at all. Like I don't think any of us have even looked at data for sports betting in a very long time, if ever. But I really do enjoy the environment that it creates when in Vegas. Like I think the three of us, like we were texting Sunday, like the Giants and Cowboys game, that there was just so many points scored. I think it was 41 points scored in the fourth quarter, and it was back and forth, back and forth. Like being in a sports book where you've got half of the place on one team, the other half on the other, and it's going back and forth and you're screaming. Or like during March Madness when you've got like, I was out there when UMBC beat Virginia, the first ever 16 seed. Like the just energy in there, like that's what I really like about it. And you don't even need to be sports betting. Like when we go out there, we have a couple of people who aren't gamblers, but they're just sitting there drinking Michelob Ultra, which is the best beer in Vegas, I've heard. Just having a grand old time. On the flip side, what I hate about sports betting, and this is really just what I hate about gambling in general, is the anger that it brings out in people. Like, and sometimes I fall into this. I'll be at a craps table and it's a very bad run, and I'm like, fuck, right? Like like I can get that. But like the people who are just like punching walls, like ripping up tickets, like man, that really grinds my gears.
I feel like for sports gambling, like compared to other casino games, like the math for sports betting is a bit more abstract isn't the right word, but like there are people who are really good at it and they have their hands on really good data. They know how to use the data and stuff. Then there's people who think they're good at sports betting who are just not. They're like me. Like I look at very basic data to make my Joe Flacco bet, which probably I should have been looking at a lot more. I just happened to win because I got lucky, right? And I just kind of stumbled into a bet that won. I'm not going to say it was a good or bad bet. It's a bet that kind of happened to won. And so I think I don't know if you have they have this kind of Dunning-Kruger effect where there's people who think they're better at it than they are, and then they get really angry because they think like that's a good bet. I should have won that bet when really it was just a bet. And
in
they
some
happened
sense,
to lose it.
That's all gambling. Like there's a lot of people that think they're better crap shooters than they
Sure.
are, or better blackjack players than they are. But I think you've stumbled kind of onto one of the things I was going to say, which is there's like a certain mystique of sports betting. Like it makes sense to me that I don't know where the roulette ball is going to land. Like how would I? Or I don't know what cards are going to come out of the deck in any of these card-based games. But like, how do we not know who's going to win in one of these football games? Like it should just kind of be known what's going to happen. Like you can see who's on, like how random could it be? And it turns out the answer is a lot. And it's like highly stochastic and the variance on these bets is super wide, but it doesn't feel like it should be. And I think that's one of the things that's so fun about sports betting, but also one of the things that can be really annoying about sports betting is that you can just really believe in the bet you're making. You don't sit down at a blackjack table because you're like, you know what I think today? Today's a good day for me to get closer to 21 than the dealer, even though I have to act first. But you can walk up to a sports book and be like, you know what? Today's a day where the Patriots are going to cover 19 and a half. It's not even going to be close.
They have to. They're playing the Jets.
Right.
What could go wrong?
But so, yeah, that then leads to one of my pet peeves is that like when you lose, you're not only do you lose the money, but you were also just wrong.
Right.
And so like sometimes you're betting on a team that's like a touchdown favorite and then they lose outright. And you're like, well, what? How does your worldview is shattered at the same time your bankroll is, which can be very frustrating.
And this leads me into something, since we're all just leading into things.
That's how conversations work. Yeah.
We're just leading in, right? I made a choice a little while ago to not get sunburned. No. I made a choice that I was not going to treat any of my gambling as a skill-based thing. So I used to play more poker. I used to do more sports betting, which meant I would listen to podcasts and I would, try and track some things or whatever. And then I realized that I'm not smart enough for that, or at least I'm not willing to put in the work to be smart enough for any of that.
Mhm.
And I want my gambling to be my entertainment. So I actually moved way far away from things like poker and sports because like those are two things that, yes, you can be better than other people, like if you have the information, if you practice, etc. And so I moved away from them and I do a lot more just the random throw of the dice or the blackjack or the let it ride. Or the slots, but not like the AP slots. Like I'm not going to sit there and be like, "Ooh, Buffalo Ascension," because I know I would have to like learn that thing. And I think, that's another term that you hear a lot with sports betting is sharp betting versus recreational betting.
Mhm.
And now I am firmly and will always be and always have been really in that recreational part where I'm just saying, "Hey, Cowboys good cover," and if they don't, I don't get my world shattered because I go in saying I'm a goddamn idiot when it comes to this stuff. So like, I guess I was just wrong. I'll be wrong again. Whereas like sharp betting, like those are the people who have the ins, right? They're on the phone with the Penn State beat writers from Blue White Illustrated being like, yo, who's on? Is Josh Reeves going to be traveling to Ohio State for this basketball game? Like those are the people who are really making that money, I believe.
Yeah, there's something to be said for playing a game that it's possible to be good at, but you're not, can be like kind of frustrating in its own
Oh,
way,
yeah.
right? Where, at least at other games of chance, I'm no worse than anyone else at it.
And you give that false confidence too. Like I won almost all my bets this past weekend or when I was in Vegas. And like I felt good. I'm like, oh, I can't wait for week 2. But I really should be waiting for week 2 because I shouldn't bet anything because this is the best I'm actually going to do. Right.
Yeah.
I fooled myself. I did just a little bit of research, right? And I won. And that's the worst thing that can kind of happen to a recreational player at times. It's fun. I mean, if you're new to sports betting, like it is fun to get the itch. It's fun to do. It makes watching some of the games really compelling. Like for instance, I had Cowboys -5.5 against the Giants, and there were times, so many times before quarter, I'm like, oh well, it's out. Like this bet's done now, right? They're going to go down and kick a field goal, and that's it. And then they tied it. I'm like, wait, this bet can still win in overtime if the Cowboys get a touchdown. So now I'm back in it again. It's like my emotions throughout that last quarter were just like all over the place. I'm like, oh, this bet's done. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of back into it. It was just weird. And I don't know if that's healthy or not, but it's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
So, James, you've already declared that you're willing to almost on a daily basis bet against the baseball team that you root for.
All the time.
Adam, how do you feel about betting against or with your fandom?
I am pretty ambivalent about it. I'm already kind of so into watching it that I don't really need anything else. But it's also it helps that the Chicago teams are so bad right now, spare the Cubs, that like I wouldn't want to bet with them anyway. So it doesn't matter. And they're so inconsistent and ridiculous that I wouldn't want to bet against them either because who knows what the hell they're going to do in any given week. So but I can see why people would enjoy betting for or against their particular team, especially because they're more likely to watch it anyway. And it's not as fun to have a bet that's just kind of out in the ether and you're just kind of later in the day waiting to see what the score was and whether or not the bet won or not.
Yeah, I'm emotionally hedging all the time. Like when the Mets made the World Series, I was like, I'm gonna bet $1,000 against them because I want them to win so badly that I need to be compensated if they lose.
You're the mattress Mac of the Northeast.
I'm actually
Yeah.
exactly. I really enjoy when the team I want to win is the favorite because then what I'll do, like if Penn State's going to be about a 4.5 point favorite against Oregon here at the Whiteout in a week and a half, and I can't wait to bet Oregon like +4.5 because then there's that sweet spot where it's like my bet wins and my team wins. That's the sweet spot right there. And that's talking sports.
That's talking sports.
Speaking of sports, we are in Tim Lawson from The Better Life. We're in his Survivor League, and we have had 2 expert picks I had it all the way. Broncos and Cowboys, obvious winners from the beginning.
Easy.
So the question we have is, what horse-themed team are we going to pick next?
Would you want to explain what a Survivor contest is first?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great thing. So a Survivor contest is each week you are picking an NFL team to win. Now
yes,
this
aligned
almost
with our interests.
right, so just to win, which we almost got eliminated because if a tie does not, they're not winning. So we did, if they would end up with a tie. But anyways, the kicker is that you can't pick the same team twice throughout the season. So because we picked Broncos week 1, we cannot pick the Broncos again for the rest of this season. Same thing with Cowboys.
And what happens if you pick a team that doesn't win?
And if you pick a team that does not win, you are now out.
Mm.
Unless you're in a contest that gives you mulligans, which is stupid, and you should never join one of those.
No.
And the crap Vegas guys should not have allowed that last year, and I'm glad they fixed it for their.
They allowed mulligans?
Last year they did. You could get one wrong. I know.
They have sponsors on that show?
I know. Why would you ever go to videopoker.com?
Okay.
So yeah, so what game are we going to pick? Are there other horse-themed teams in the NFL?
Well, I think the Colts, pretty obviously horse-themed. And then Chargers occasionally will use some sort of a Charger horse as a logo, kind of as an alternate logo to the lightning bolt. But that's really kind of what we'd be looking at there. But no, I've got ESPN up right here, and I'm looking at some of the biggest favorites for this weekend. We've got tomorrow's game. Buffalo Bills are the biggest favorite on the whole slate at 11.5 points. You'd think people are, even though this would be your one chance to take the Bills, I think a lot of people are going to go for that. Anything else catching your guys' eye here? We've got Seahawks at home, more than a touchdown favorite. I think we all agreed kind of in the pre-show that we don't want to pick a road team, even if you have a road team like the Packers that are supposed to win by like 8 over the Browns. Maybe steer clear of that.
I've never agreed with that. I mean, you guys said that. And I just kind of
you nodded along.
I nodded and said fine. Just so the record's clear, like all of my choices have won. So I'm batting 1,000 right now. So I'm not saying that's going to continue.
All right, Adam. What is your pick for week 3?
Well, I like going the risky route first because everybody's going for kind of the obvious. But no, I was thinking like, I don't know.
Next words out of your mouth are the pick. So what is it?
Commanders. I was thinking Commanders. Raiders at Commanders. That's what I was thinking. But
Adam, this is a Las Vegas podcast. In fact, Jack made it very clear that we can't talk about Atlantic City, Biloxi, or Blackhawk, any of those different places, right? It's not an Atlantic City podcast. It is a Vegas podcast. We can't bet against Vegas. I'm gonna say that because I'm the one that's entering it in, we're gonna take the Seahawks. We're gonna stick with animals, and we're doing this for our buddy Josh Duffy.
I do
Vegas
like the
Duffy up there in Seattle.
I do like the brief bit of intrigue we'll get here, where if Adam's pick starts to look better than James's at some point, we'll get some fun in the group chat. So I'm all in favor of it. Whatever you guys do, it's cool with me.
That's fine. It's just for the listeners because behind the curtain, the first week we were offering suggestions and I offered Commanders and they ignored it and ended up winning. So I know it's not good, right? But I'm just going to keep offering Commanders until the end of the season, just because the first week you both ignored me and just did whatever you wanted. So
that's true. All right. So we have 2 more segments we want to get to. The first one is going to be some listener questions sent in by Chris McGowan, aka Gamblin' Magoo.
Love him.
Writes, I'm loving the video poker and cocktail talk.
Okay, that's all you're getting. So
yeah, that's all you're getting. Maybe some mini fridge talk, but all right. I'm loving the video poker and cocktail talk and have a couple of questions for the panel. I'm glad we're a panel now. I also love this next part. Just for information purposes, I'm a low-rolling 25-cent and 50-cent single-line video poker player that typically plays fast. I never have a problem with keeping the green light on. Is this person academic? Because this is such the typical going to a conference, like an academic conference, and raising your hand during the question and answer and being like, I have a question. Well, actually, it's more of a statement.
And here's what I'm about.
And here's who I am. Anyways,
Good
all right.
context.
Question 1 from Chris. I've recently abstained from the Chandelier Bar after they stopped comping specialty cocktails when the ticket system went away. Can you provide a bit more detail on the new comp policy for specialty cocktails? Do you think I need to play dollar video poker to get comp cocktails from the menu?
Yeah, so I think I'll take this one pretty quick because I think the answer to this is pretty cut and dry. They don't discern or discriminate your bet level really at all. Like you said, if the green light's on, that's the max you're going to get, is having the green light on. There's no anything above or beyond that. So if whatever cocktails you can get for having that light on is what you're going to get. And then, so more specifically, detail on their comp policy. I think nothing on the menu is comped, kind of regardless of the price or what it is. I think that's just, it's still true, and you're still right about that. They have, like I mentioned somewhat recently, increased the limit on the price of the drink you can get. So now it's anything like 25 and under, or up to 25, depending on, kind of what verbiage they're using. I think that what you kind of have to do there is either what Adam said, find a drink on the menu that you want and ask them, can they make them something similar? Or just kind of have a repertoire of drinks that are in your mind as a drink you like to have that that they'll be able to make. Like there's a lot of good classic cocktails out there that are classics for a reason that bartenders, especially at a nice cocktail bar like the Chandelier, are going to know and be able to make for you.
Nice. All right. His second question. I am more of a Caesars player. Oh no, I hope he didn't listen to hour 1.
Sorry, Chris.
He might not make it to this one. I am more of a Caesars player. Do you have any recommendations for Caesars properties with good comped cocktail bars? I usually hit Bound Bar and Harrah's Lobby Bar. I will be checking out the Monte Cristo Bar at Paris or Caesars this trip. No.
Just radio silence. I think Chris is going to be our man on the ground for this one. I mean, Bound Bar used to be like the bar on the strip for good cocktails. Yeah. I unfortunately don't know about any other bars. I know the main bar at Horseshoe used to be really good for old fashions.
Yep, that's gone.
Yeah, that's gone. So unfortunately, I think, at least from my perspective, I can't answer any of this with any sort of...
my 2 recommendations that I would go to are 2 of kind of the newer bars in Caesars portfolio. One is, Adam already mentioned, the Glass Bar at Planet Hollywood. Other than the fact that the pay tables are Caesars pay tables, which you're going to get everywhere, I think that I've heard that the drinks there are good and that the comp system is reasonable. So I would check that one out. And then also, I've been really interested in playing at the lobby bar at Caesars Palace. There's kind of a long lobby bar in between their like main atrium and the main hotel check-in atrium. And that one, I've heard that the comps are pretty reasonable as well. So if you're used to dealing with Caesars pay tables, I think both of those could be good. And then last, we've mentioned the Caesars Palace Sportsbook Bar as being a good place to sit and watch games. Don't know what the cocktails are going to be like there. Haven't heard anything about them, but they've at least upgraded all the machines there, which is nice.
And I think that if you're a 25-cent, 50-cent single line video poker, you're probably getting the same pay tables at Caesars as you are at MGM. No, would you agree with that? No, you don't think so?
No, it's like a full tick worse, everything at Caesars.
You don't think their bonus poker is going to be...
It's not. It's like it's 6-5, but you don't get paid as well on 4 of a kinds. It's like the fake 150 for every quad.
Got you. Oh, well, that's why I don't play 25 cent, 50 cent. Because I like to lose more.
Well, and then Caesars, even unlike MGM, sometimes keeps the same bad pay tables as you bump the denoms up. That's not true at every Caesars bar, but it is true at some of them, and that's very frustrating as well.
Yeah, it's not like you get to dollars where you start seeing...
No, but that's what I'm saying. Even at dollars at Caesars, you can find the same junk.
Because remember when I was going to try and do Diamond in a Day, and I was on VP Free 2 or whatever, and I was trying to find anything. Like there was nothing decent available. So yeah, that's rough.
So our suggestion is to go over to the Chandelier Bar.
The Chandelier Bar that you've already abstained from because they don't abstaining drinks. Yeah.
Although Monte Cristo, there's a Monte Cristo at Caesars, right?
Yep, he said at Paris or Caesars. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Because I remember the one at Caesars like 10 years ago having great comped cocktails, but I think it was at a $1 denom. Obviously, that was a decade ago, and I might not be remembering accurately. So, yeah, just stop abstaining from Chandelier Bar and come join us for a drink or two.
I do think they've gotten way less weird about which drinks they will or will not comp. There's nothing that I've ordered off menu that they wouldn't comp.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a lot of cool stuff, like their cosmopolitans there, perhaps unsurprisingly, are like pretty neat. They use like kind of a white cranberry juice or cranberry liqueur that makes it, not look like that traditional kind of like pink cosmopolitan color. I think there's a lot of good stuff to order at Chandelier. You just kind of have to figure out what you like, or see if a bottle behind the bar grabs your eye and ask them to make you something with that.
Yeah. He finishes up with loving the pod. Keep up the great work. So
thank you, Chris.
Throw that in there.
Please leave a review, a formal one.
5 stars. 5 stars. All right. Let's end this with our last segment and our most famous segment, according to Twitter. What are we plugging?
What are we plugging?
Jack, what are we plugging?
Well, the first thing I'd like to plug is James had an appearance on The Better Life recently. Tim Lawson over there in his new Better Than Ever feed, of course, Bettor is how you spell better. In his new Better Life, Better Than Ever feed, he's interviewing James about, how James got started in gambling and what, Vegas trips look like for him these days, and a lot of other fun stuff. He even talks about this podcast a little bit. And so that was a really cool listen, and I'll have that in the show notes for us.
Yeah, Tim's another rebrand. I think I now have the fewer rebrands than Tim does in terms of podcasting, so people can stop making fun of me now, which I would appreciate.
Yeah, that'll be coming right up.
Jack, you also wanted to shout out Pete for our logo.
Yeah, my buddy Pete whipped together our Handy at the Shandy logo that you see in your podcast feed. And he achieved some internet fame a couple years ago for doing all these like custom Celtics jerseys. And he's kind of does like a jersey design of like cool Boston inspired things. But he does a couple other kind of designs for other teams around there. Like my sister lives in Denver, and I bought her one of his jerseys. That's pretty cool. So I'll put a link to like the shop where he sells like a handful of those designs online if you want to buy like a cool custom basketball jersey. And because he put together the logo for this podcast free of charge, I thought I'd plug him a little bit.
Nice.
Similarly, for the podcast, I wanted to plug DJ Sabrina, the Teenage DJ, whose music is used as the intro, bumper, and outro music for this show. And I got her permission to use one of the songs for that. So I thought that was pretty cool. One of my favorite artists to listen to.
Right.
And last but not least, Chris's Instagram.
Yeah.
Hop Happy Beer Blog.
Yeah, Gamble Magoo was nice enough
to
write into the show, and so I figured we'd plug his Instagram. He does a lot of cool short form content. I know I saw like a year ago on Twitter, he was doing these kind of like for each day of his Vegas trip, he was doing these like 1 minute supercut videos of like all the things he did on that trip, and I thought those were really neat. I was like, man, I wish I was like briefly inspired to try to do something like that, and I gave up after like 4 seconds. But if I've liked his content about Vegas in the past, and if you're a beer enthusiast, I'd check out his Instagram page, and that's in the show notes as well.
Yeah, he's got a good following. He's a super nice guy too.
Yeah,
really like him. I do have one more thing to plug. It's not on our list, but if you like our sports betting talk, I would say follow Sportsbook Tom on Twitter. Actually, even if you didn't like our sports betting talk, because to me, he's the guru. Any pick I win is basically because I tail him. But he has a fantastic podcast called Cover the Weekend as well. And that's got a Patreon page, which one of the rare times where someone's doing Patreon content and it's actually worth it. They're actually giving you extra stuff and insight and details. But big fan of Sportsbook Tom, so check him out as well.
And I'll include a link to that in the show notes.
Thank you for doing all the work, Jack, for the show notes.
Yeah, we should plug Jack.
Yeah, let's plug Jack.
I've been saying that for a while.
What are we plugging?
Jack.
Yeah, few drinks at the Shandy, and I'm like, you know what? We should plug Jack tonight.
I think that's where we get out of here. I think that's where we get out of here for the second hour of episode 6 of Handy at the Shandy, a Las Vegas podcast. Thank you for being with us. For Table James Games, I'm Adam the Fraud Power, and I'm Boring Jack.
All right, thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time. Bye.
Plug you later.